Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about specifically the power source for the rogue class. So basically, I'm talking about Dungeons & Dragons, and specifically through all 5 editions, we've had the core 4. So you have a wizard, a fighter, a cleric, and a rogue. And these are the fundamental classes. And it is my opinion that all of the base classes in every edition since have really been distillations of those 4. So, like, take a look at a good example would be Ranger. So Ranger is a fighter with a few divine spells attached, right? Or a good example would be the Monk. So the Monk, same thing, would be a fighter with some divine abilities attached as well. Excuse me. So the Paladin, of course, fighter with divine as well, right? So there are different mixtures of the other. So almost let's talk about the Druid, right? So you could talk. The Druid would clearly be, what would he be a mixture of? Cleric, fighter, wizard. I think you're mostly going to get there. That would probably be wizard and fighter, right? Because they have the ability to fight as well. But when we talk about the rogue character, there's a question of where its power source came from, okay? And what is the power source of the rogue class? So in order to determine that, let's talk about the power source of each of the other core 4. So the fighter, the power source for the fighter, for a long time, the power source for the fighter really wasn't actually acknowledged. I don't think the power source for the fighter was acknowledged clearly until 4th edition. But the power source for the fighter is martial power. These are all of what the fighter is able to do come from what they've learned in war or conflict specifically, right? And also their power source is their own training, their own strength, their own endurance, and their own agility, right? So it's limited, okay? It goes pretty high, but it is limited to the abilities within that person, within that fighter, no matter what their race are, okay? Let's talk about the wizard. The wizard is fairly unusual. The power source for a wizard is arcane, okay? And so what that is magic that has been is complex magic, okay? So that is magic that has, essentially in order for that power source to be used, it is dozens, hundreds of hours of research on the part of the wizard, using a path that has been shown to them, usually by a master, right? And what they're doing is they are unveiling secrets of the universe and just snatching bits of magic from those unveiled areas, okay? So the power source for a wizard is arcane, and really what you're dealing with arcane is you're dealing with complex magic. The divine power source, okay? The power source of the cleric. This is bestowed blessings. So these powers are coming from a deity specifically, okay? And the dedication of the cleric to the deity is what gives them their power, okay? Now, actually, in my opinion, from a role-playing perspective, this is generally the one that is... It should be difficult to role-play a cleric because you have to be very devout, right? And the power that's given to them should be coming from essentially a thankful deity, which, and my only point is I rarely see the role-playing that's required to show that that's what's happening with those type of characters. But the power source for clerics is divine, and then divine's explanation is that is a bestowed blessings, okay? So let's talk about the rogue. The rogue is a little bit odd man out. He's more difficult to understand than some of the others, but I think I have a handle on it. So one, at this point, I don't think anyone has really ever shown clearly what the power source for a rogue is. It's one of the reasons why I'm talking about it today. I've seen them lumped into the martial, and I think that's just absolutely wrong. Because the abilities that rogues display, they do not come from what was learned in war or what was learned in conflict. Those are skills that come from desperation, learning them in desperation. They're a mixture of survival activity, and then in some ways it also is born out of greed. You know, people who really just want to take from the world as much as possible. Those are all rogue skills. So I believe that the best one-word description of the rogue powers is sleight. Okay, and sleight can be explained through obscured, swift action. Okay, and it is really, really distinct from any of the other power bases. Okay, now the Bard is a perfect example. The Bard is a fighter rogue. Okay, now you think, well, what is a Bard obscuring? And it's interesting, when they perform, it's all eyes on me. You know, so how would they be using obscured abilities for bards? Well, what they're really obscuring is they're obscuring the struggles and the pains of the world for everyone who is watching them, right? So I think that's really interesting, and I would really like it if Wizards of the Coast would acknowledge sleight and actually start to acknowledge that there is a distinct power source for the rogue class. Just been thinking about that. Thank you very much.